From KGB officer to President of Russia, the rise of Vladimir Putin for over 2 decades. One man has stood at the center of Russian politics, admired by supporters as the leader who restored Russia's strength, criticized by opponents as a leader who concentrated power, a former intelligence officer, a skilled political survivor, a man whose life story mirrors the dramatic transformation of modern Russia. But before the Kremlin, before the presidency, and before global influence, there was a boy growing up in a crowded apartment in Soviet Russia. This is the story of Vladimir Putin, the story of how a KGB officer became president of Russia. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in the Soviet city of St. Petersburg, then called Leningrad. His parents were ordinary Soviet citizens. His father, Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin, had served in the Soviet Navy and fought during World War II. His mother, Maria Ivanovna Putina, worked in factories and struggled to support the family. The couple had experienced heartbreaking loss. Before Vladimir's birth, they had 2 sons. Both died at a young age. One of them died during the terrible siege of Leningrad, one of the deadliest events of World War II. When Vladimir was born, he became their only surviving child. The Putin family lived in a communal apartment known as a kommunalka. Several families lived under the same roof. Each family occupied a single room. The kitchen was shared. The bathroom was shared. The toilet was shared. Everyday activities required patience and compromise. In the morning, neighbors often waited in line to prepare breakfast. Families competed for space on the stove. Children played in crowded hallways. Privacy was almost impossible. Arguments over household chores were common. Life in the communal apartment taught young Vladimir important lessons about competition, discipline, and survival. Putin later described himself as a small but stubborn child. The streets could be rough. Fights were frequent. To develop discipline and confidence, he began practicing judo and sambo. The lessons of martial arts would stay with him for life. Patience, control, strategy, and determination. While other children dreamed of becoming athletes or pilots, the KGB was one of the most powerful institutions in the Soviet Union. Its officers protected state secrets, gathered intelligence, and defended Soviet interests around the world. Putin became fascinated by intelligence work. He reportedly visited a KGB office as a teenager to ask how he could join. The answer was simple: get an education. Serve your country. Prove yourself. In 1970, Putin entered the law faculty of Leningrad State University. He worked hard and maintained a disciplined lifestyle. 5 years later, in 1975, he graduated. Soon afterward, his dream became reality. He was recruited into the KGB. At the age of 22, Vladimir Putin had entered the world of Soviet intelligence. The KGB was not merely an intelligence agency. It was one of the pillars of Soviet power. Putin spent years learning surveillance, intelligence gathering, and political analysis. His career advanced steadily. In 1985, he received an important foreign assignment. He was sent to the East German city of Dresden. East Germany was one of Moscow's closest allies. Putin worked there as a KGB officer during the final years of the Cold War. But beneath the surface, Eastern Europe was changing. Citizens increasingly demanded reform. Communist governments faced growing pressure. Then history took a dramatic turn. In November 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. The Soviet bloc began to collapse. For Putin, it was a moment that would shape his understanding of politics and power forever. While building his career, Putin also built a family. In the early 1980s, he met a young flight attendant named Lyudmila Shkrebneva. The two quickly developed a relationship. On July 28, 1983, they married. Soon afterward, they moved together to East Germany. Their family grew. Their first daughter, Maria, was born on April 28, 1985. Their second daughter, Yekaterina, was born on August 31, 1986. Despite his demanding work, Putin was known to be protective of his family's privacy. Even after entering politics, he rarely discussed his daughters publicly. The family remained largely hidden from public attention, a habit that would continue for decades. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. A superpower disappeared. Millions lost jobs and savings. Russia entered a period of uncertainty. The transition to a market economy was painful. Crime increased. Inflation soared. Many Russians felt their country had lost its place in the world. Putin returned to Russia during this period of turmoil. But rather than disappearing into history, he saw opportunity. After leaving the KGB, Putin joined the administration of reformist politician Anatoly Sobchak. He earned a reputation for loyalty and efficiency. His work attracted attention in Moscow. By 1996, he had moved to the Russian capital. His rise through government was remarkably fast. Within only a few years, he became one of the most trusted officials in the administration of Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Few ordinary Russians knew his. In 1998, he was appointed director of the Federal Security Service, or FSB, the successor to the KGB. 1 year later, he became prime minister. At the time, most Russians barely knew his name. Few imagined he would soon become president. By 1999, President Boris Yeltsin was facing declining health and public dissatisfaction. Russia was searching for stability. On August 9, 1999, Yeltsin appointed Vladimir Putin as prime minister and publicly endorsed him as his preferred successor. Putin quickly gained national attention through his response to security challenges and the conflict in Chechnya. His image as a decisive and strong leader resonated with many Russians. Then came a dramatic turning point. On December 31, 1999, Boris Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned. According to the Russian constitution, Vladimir Putin automatically became acting president. A new era had begun. In March 2000, Putin won the presidential election. At just 47 years old, he became president of Russia. His primary message was simple: restore order, strengthen the state, rebuild national pride. Many Russians, exhausted by years of economic hardship and uncertainty, embraced his leadership. Putin moved quickly to strengthen the authority of the federal government and reduce the influence of powerful oligarchs who had accumulated enormous wealth during the 1990s. Supporters saw these actions as restoring stability. Critics argued that democratic institutions were becoming weaker. During the early 2000s, Russia experienced significant economic growth. High global energy prices boosted government revenues. Wages increased. Poverty declined. Millions of Russians saw improvements in their quality of life. The country's foreign currency reserves grew substantially. The Russian state regained confidence. As living standards improved, Putin's popularity soared. For many citizens, he became the symbol of Russia's recovery after the difficult post-Soviet years. One of Putin's major priorities was rebuilding Russia's military. The armed forces that emerged from the Soviet collapse were underfunded and struggling. Large-scale reforms were introduced. Training improved. Modern equipment replaced aging Soviet-era systems. Russia invested heavily in new tanks, fighter aircraft, submarines, air defense systems, and missile technology. Special attention was given to strategic nuclear forces and advanced missile programs. The military's performance in later operations demonstrated a level of capability that had not existed during the difficult years of the 1990s. Supporters viewed these reforms as restoring Russia's status as a major world power. The modernization of the military became a central pillar of Putin's vision for Russia. But political success often came with personal sacrifice. The demands of leadership required constant travel and public responsibilities. His family became increasingly distant from public life. For years, rumors circulated about difficulties in his marriage. Neither Putin nor Lyudmila publicly discussed the situation. Then, in 2013, the couple made a surprising announcement. On June 6, 2013, Vladimir Putin and Lyudmila publicly confirmed that they were ending their marriage. After nearly 30 years together, they had decided to separate. The divorce became official in April 2014. Despite their separation, both stated that they remained on good terms. Putin also focused on expanding Russia's diplomatic influence. He strengthened relations with China, India, countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. Economic cooperation increased. Energy exports became a powerful diplomatic tool. Russia became increasingly active within international organizations such as BRICS. Putin promoted the idea of a multipolar world. arguing that no single country should dominate global affairs. His government sought to position Russia as an independent center of power capable of balancing Western influence. Many countries welcomed stronger ties with Moscow. Others viewed Russia's growing influence with caution. As Russia regained strength, relations with the West became increasingly strained. One of Moscow's biggest concerns was the continued expansion of NATO. Since the end of the Cold War, several former Soviet-aligned countries had joined the alliance. Russian leaders argued that NATO's movement toward Russia's borders represented a threat to national security. NATO maintained that its expansion was voluntary and defensive. The disagreement became one of the defining geopolitical disputes of the 21st century. Mutual distrust grew. Military exercises increased. Political tensions deepened. The relationship between Russia and the West steadily deteriorated. The greatest challenge of Putin's later presidency emerged in Ukraine. Relations between Moscow and Kyiv had become increasingly tense after political changes in Ukraine and disputes over the country's future orientation. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea following a controversial referendum. The move was welcomed by many Russians but condemned by Ukraine and most Western governments. Sanctions were imposed on Russia. The confrontation intensified over the following years. Then, on February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale military invasion of Ukraine. Russian officials stated that the operation was necessary to protect Russia's security interests. Ukraine, supported by many countries around the world, rejected these claims and described the invasion as an act of aggression. The war became the largest armed conflict in Europe since World War II. Thousands of soldiers and civilians lost their lives. Millions were displaced. The conflict reshaped international politics, energy markets, and global security calculations. Russia possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal and one of the most powerful militaries on Earth. Its vast territory stretches across Europe and Asia. Its energy resources influence global markets. Its military capabilities continue to affect international security. Because of these factors, Russia remains a central focus of NATO and the United States. Western governments have increased defense spending and strengthened military deployments in Eastern Europe. Supporters argue these measures deter potential threats. Russia argues that such actions confirm its long-standing security concerns. The result is an ongoing geopolitical rivalry that continues to shape world affairs. From a modest apartment in Leningrad to the Kremlin in Moscow, Vladimir Putin's rise is one of the most remarkable political journeys of modern times. He witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union. He navigated the chaos of the 1990s. He rebuilt state institutions, strengthened the military, expanded Russia's diplomatic reach, and returned his country to the center of global politics. Yet his leadership has also been marked by controversy, confrontation, and war. To supporters, he is the leader who restored Russian power and national pride. To critics, he is the architect of a political system that centralized authority and challenged the post-Cold War international order. Whatever history's final judgment may be, one fact remains undeniable. Vladimir Putin has shaped the course of Russia and influenced world events more than almost any other leader of the 21st century.